It's the Gasparilla Bowl versus Georgia Tech, and a brand new quarterback one could be on the horizon for the UCF Knights. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, as always, a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline. The holiday season is off and rolling with NFL in full stride and the NBA and NHL hitting mid-season form. BetOnline is your number one destination for all your sports wagering info. With up-to-the-minute sports wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions, BetOnline is the top spot for everything pro and amateur sports. And not just the Big Four. BetOnline has info available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time for almost any sport that is played, from MMA to international soccer. Head to BetOnline today and remember to use our promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am under the weather. If you are a listener of the show, you can hear it in my voice. I am not feeling good, but this needed to happen. This episode needed to happen. We're not stopping for any sickness. And big news hit yesterday, which we're going to start off with. I know, Nick, I originally was just thinking, oh, okay, this week we're going to do the bowl episode, not like breakdown or anything, but give our thoughts on the bowl game, because that was a crap show where we thought we were playing Duke, then you're playing Georgia Tech. We'll get into that because that's important to talk about. But as we finish the regular season, we start to, transfer portal opens up. You start to look at potentially what the Knights are going to do. And there's a couple people that UCF offered where you're like, oh, okay, linebackers, offensive linemen, whatever. Well, then quarterbacks news breaks, and we've been waiting for that. And we've talked for 2 years of who would the Knights go after. What kind of quarterback are they going to be looking for? Are they going to go with Timmy McClain? Are they going to, go with a young kid like Dylan Risk or Riley Trujillo when he comes in? Well, I think the Knights have made it very, very clear that they are going after a quarterback. But let's get right into it. All right. Tyler Shuck visited the Knights last weekend. You were not very high on it. I think I was trying to tell myself that I liked it because, again, a quarterback that has had multiple injury problems over the last however many years of his career. And when you're talking about a starting quarterback, you don't want the first thing when you talk about a starting quarterback to be he's injured all the time. So I think you were very, I don't like this. That was your prerogative. I was like, not the greatest thing, but listen, I'll find my love for it. Well, he commits to Louisville yesterday. And then late last night, On 3 reports that Grayson McCall is taking a visit to UCF this weekend. So before we get into all of the details and all that stuff, kind of how are you doing? I know we just got started really quick. And what is your take on Grayson McCall as a quarterback before we get into what it could mean for UCF?
Been a crazy week in college football. That's probably putting it lightly. There was a reason why the bowl process was so weird and why all these ACC teams were just flipping back and forth in all these bowl matchups. But yeah, UCF settles on Georgia Tech. We'll get into that later, obviously. Grayson McCall. Coastal Carolina for, 2020 and 2021, when he was at the height of his powers as a player. And I mean, he's won the Sun Belt Player of the Year 3 times, by the way. When he was there at Coastal Carolina, I mean, who had ever really heard of Coastal Carolina? I think they were known for having, Josh Norman went there, the NFL cornerback, if you recall. Didn't really know much about Coastal Carolina. If you did, God bless you. But Grayson McCall comes along, puts him on the map. Jeremy Chadwell, obviously great head coach, no longer there. And they were ranked, I think they got up inside the top 20 at points. Yeah. And much to do with the play of Grayson McCall. And what I love about it is the experience that he brings. Just the numbers, over 10,000 yards, 88 touchdowns, only 44 interceptions. He's also rushed for 18 touchdowns. So if you do the math there, that's over 100 touchdowns that this guy has accounted for in his collegiate career. I mean, that's a lot of production. That's a lot of experience. He tiptoed, or he put his toes in the transfer portal last year, if you recall, too. He had some interest, notably Auburn, and then he decided to go back to Coastal Carolina. But clearly it looks like he's going to get that final year. and he's going to go play somewhere else that has some big time opportunities. The numbers were down this year a little bit. Not much in the running from a running variety either. He doesn't do that as much as he did when he first burst onto the scene. You had pointed out to me when we talked about this off air, new head coach, like I mentioned, new system potentially, might be playing a new way, but he also was injured. So we got to cut him a little bit of slack there. He did get injured, played 7 games, not as effective, but when this guy's out there, I think I don't want to say he's one of the, elite, and he's not in that elite tier of college football quarterback. Not going to put him there, but I could make the argument he's in that he could be in that top 20 range maybe at his best. I think that's fair to say that, yeah. And that'd be a huge get for UCF.
You kind of mentioned it. Tim Beck was the new head coach at Coastal this year, and he brought a more pro-style offense to Coastal, which I think didn't necessarily help Grayson. I think if you just look at the Chadwell era at Coastal Carolina and what they like to do on offense, spread it out, I think that benefits Grayson McCall, and I think knowing UCF's offense and how they run their offense, it's what Grayson McCall kind of is used to, and I think he can do really well in it. You mentioned the top elite quarterbacks. Gus, he got asked the question because I forgot who said it. I think Matt Rule said that it costs about $1 to $2 million for one of the top quarterbacks in a portal, right? And, it was the first time that Gus really, listen, he's always been, hey, the landscape in college football is changing. You better get on the bus or you're going to get left behind, right? Gus has always been that way. It was the first time I've heard Gus Malzahn basically be pretty blank and honest about the Kingdom NIL and the situation that's going on, because they were asked about quarterbacks and Gus said, yeah, we're going to go after some of them. We're going to try. But you can kind of get the sense that it's not as good as it needs to be. They are behind in the metrics of NIL. And Gus even mentioned, you can call any guy that you want. You can talk to him. But sometimes the first thing they're asking is about what the collective is doing. They're not even asking first about the style, how you're going to make them better, how you're going to really develop them. It's what's your collective like. So, you mentioned the elite tier and the elite tier of guys, and that he might not be in that elite tier. Listen, if he didn't have the down year last year, I think realistically, you talked about it, right? Last year when he entered the portal, we were high on Grayson McCall. We're like, if UCF could go get Grayson McCall, that might change the first season of the Big 12. Because if you look at his 3 years, not including last year, but if you look at his 3 years starting, it's insane numbers. If he didn't have his down year last year, number one, he's either going to the NFL. Number two, he's either going to one of the top 10 schools in the nation that need a quarterback. Oregon would probably be calling him because he's very similar to what Bo Nix does. Auburn would still be calling him. And I'm not saying that those schools aren't interested, but to your point, I think UCF is clearly looking at a certain kind of number of quarterbacks that, number one, fit their system, that aren't maybe in the top 10 upper echelon of quarterbacks, because again, UCF cannot afford it with NIL. And number three, a guy that will come in and maybe have 1 to 2 years of eligibility so that you can kind of start bringing in your young guys and saying, okay, you're going to start playing. So talk about NIL a little bit and how, if UCF can afford it, because UCF fans, they were donating to the Kingdom last night. When that report came out, that was the most money I've seen people post to go to the Kingdom because they really want this guy. It's the first time I think Knight Nation has ever kind of done a prayer circle around one guy, but kind of talk about the NIL collective and clearly what a report like this does for that.
It's big. It kind of, you see a name like this comes out, everybody knows who he is. They can look at the numbers and all that, and it kind of sends like a shockwave throughout the fan base of, we got to go support. And you got to get those messages as well from those involved in the program. Matt Rule put it out there, different program, but I think he kind of put the blueprint. And to be honest, I think we've already known that at this point. And, you look at the legislation that they're trying to pass, the NCAA yesterday, where if I'm interpreting it correctly, from they want to put the schools pay them directly through their own NIL deals.
I don't like that.
That is going to, I have to digest that one for a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's something that needs to be done. Like the school should have the ability to pay the player. Don't get me wrong. But I have to digest that fully. But I'll keep it back to where we are. And, the Kingdom NIL thing, it's interesting. I'm not as up to speed with the Kingdom stuff. But then I was like before this McCall report came out, I'm sure you saw this on Twitter, Sean, when Terry Mahajer put out this plea, essentially, right before the Bowls. And he said, I have a call to action to all of Knight Nation. It is paramount now more than ever to support our collective at Kingdom NIL. And he tagged where you can donate. And then Sean Toohey Jr., the executive director of Kingdom NIL, said that this tweet, the one from Terry Mahajer there, generated more subscribers than anything they had done since their first month. Okay. I guess that tells me that, and maybe I've missed this, okay? I could be off base. So you tell me if I'm off. But has there been enough signaling, do you think, from the university and from those in the athletic department about the Kingdom NIL? Because at least how I'm interpreting it is we're here at the portal season now, and the AD is telling us to, go donate to the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And then I have the executive director of Kingdom NIL telling me that plea right there has generated more subscribers for them than the first month that they introduced this since then. Yeah. So I guess my question is, it's like, where was the signaling, unless I missed it?
Well, I'll say to UCF's credit, I think, because really they've only been the full-time NIL collective for a year, because you had Mackenzie Milton's one that was kind of like the, meet like certain player events, and then it kind of got folded into the Kingdom NIL because they wanted just one surefire collective. I think if you know UCF football, you have heard about Kingdom NIL. But
yeah, of course,
if you are maybe just a supporter of UCF, you are an alumni, you love the university, but you're maybe not as into, everything besides the game on Saturday. Yeah, I will say, they've been big on social media, trying to get people to donate and stuff like that. But to your point, when the AD puts out a tweet that says, hey, donate to the Kingdom, and that clearly generates a lot of people putting money into it, I mean, that's when we have to start looking at, we don't want to get into it, but schools.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I could be completely off base with that. It's more just an observation than me saying anything right or wrong. It's just an observation I made, really.
No, I would agree.
And in the grand scheme of things with NIL, it is kind of, it's always been weird, in my opinion, to have to ask for, fans and alumni of the university to essentially pay for these schools to, pay these players. It's like it's just a weird system, and I think we all are pretty in agreement with that. But again, that's college football now. And it's never going to sit right with me that and again, nothing I'm saying is so out there. It's never going to sit right with me that, the portal opened 2 days ago at midnight and it's running wild right now. And we got coaches who are still trying to digest the end of the season. They're preparing for bowl games, which if this whole timing of all this stuff tells you the bowl games couldn't mean any less than they already did. They're recruiting high school kids, trying to lock down recruitments there on that front, which it seems like it's been pretty quiet on the UCF front. Just a side note there.
Which could be a good thing.
Could be a good thing. Who knows? Maybe they've turned their attention to the portal and they feel confident in who they have. But yeah, it's just so much going on right now. I just don't know if anybody who made these schedules for everything has ever been coached in college football and knows the schedule. Cause I just couldn't imagine being one of these guys right now. I just don't know, how do you manage all this? It's ridiculous.
I think when Gus gave up play calling duties, I think people were just like, oh, okay, this is, BS, because he said, oh, the head coach needs to be more of like a general manager or owner, and because you have a lot more things on your plate. And people thought, oh, that's just not true. He just saying that because the offense hasn't been as good as whatever. But now you really look at it and you're like, no, he was being dead serious. Like, he can't really worry about just the offense when he's got to go on recruiting visits for transfers, or making sure he's looking at film for the transfers that coaches are kind of showing him. He's got to go on the road and visit his high school commits that are about to commit in 14 days and sign their national letter of intent. Then on top of that, you're getting ready for bowl prep with Georgia Tech, which he even said, like, after this, I'm going to go watch film on Georgia Tech. Then I'm going to probably hit the road and go. So, like, the roles that you have to kind of do now, December is basically like bang your head up against a wall month, because, like, straight up, Grayson McCall, we'll bring it all full circle. You bring in Tyler Shuck last week. He visits UCF. Then he takes a plane, goes to Louisville. Well, he's like, you know what? I'm going to commit to Louisville. I don't know if that has whatever UCF offered him with NIL. I don't know if UCF was basically looking at Tyler as, hey, you're going to compete for QB1. You're not going to be QB1. Who knows? We have no idea what the situation was with that. Now, this weekend, you've got more transfers coming in to visit. You've got a top 20 transfer quarterback coming into your building. On top of that, you're starting practices this weekend for bowl prep. On top of that, again, you need to, like you said, lock in your high school recruits. And all while you are trying to get this quarterback who's potentially going to be your starter next year, will be your starter next year, to commit to you. So I agree. I mean, it's a crap show, but quickly before we go into the bowl game, because we'll briefly touch on the bowl game. We've got a week or so before that kind of ramps up. If Grayson McCall, now granted, I put out a tweet last night, then everybody started putting out tweets about it, who Grayson McCall started following last night on Instagram. Now, usually, we've talked about this before, Nick. I'm more of the social media kind of has some meaning, not all, but social media has a little bit of an understanding of, maybe where a player's mindset is at the time, if he's liking certain things. Grayson McCall started following Kobe Hudson, RJ Harvey, Lee Hunter, and running back coach Cam Martin. He had not been following. Now, NC State is the other school that's vying for his services. He had not followed any NC State coaches or players, because on Instagram, if you follow somebody, it's your recent following. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Tyler Shuck started following UCF people too, and he went to Louisville. So at the end of the day, it don't matter. But I find it interesting, Nick, that as soon as the news broke, he then started following future running back, if he came here, future wide receiver 1, because I think we both assume Javon Baker's going to the NFL. Basically your best defensive lineman, and then a running backs coach who is pretty in touch with all the recruits coming through. What do you take with that? I know you're more of the old timer, not really care about social media. Does that have any weight at all? Or is that just, a bunch of BS? He's going to come visit, so he's following a bunch of players.
Has he followed anybody on NC State?
So that's the thing. I don't think so, because when you go to his following, the first 4 that pop up are Lee Hunter, Cam Martin, RJ Harvey, and Kobe Hudson. And then if you keep scrolling, it's all basically Coastal Carolina guys. Because you look, I guess on Instagram, when you hit the following, it's the most recent follows. Like if somebody follows you, it's the most recent of their followers that pop up. So he just had followed him. Again, how much do you... Because like Tyler Shuck, he followed a bunch of UCF guys. But then recently, when he committed to Louisville, all you see is Louisville guys at the top. So that makes sense.
In the day that we live in college football, this goes for recruiting too. This goes for portals. I don't believe a damn thing until something is signed. I just don't.
Until he sees that NIL number, he ain't.
Until he sees the number, until he sees the construction of the lazy river out there.
Oh, jeez.
Until we see all of that, I don't know. I mean, listen, you're basically at the moment recruiting against NC State. NC State is a rock solid program in the ACC that just went 9-3, if I'm not mistaken. Had a really good year. Dave Dorn is a hell of a coach. This is so crazy. So MJ Morris, the NC State quarterback from last year, or one of them at least.
Yeah.
He entered the portal and he went on some show. I saw it pop up in my Twitter somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw it too.
And he basically essentially said that they told him that they wanted to go get a starting quarterback. So he was essentially shoved out the way. And so that tells me that NC State is going all in on this recruiting trip. That's just me speculating, obviously, but I'm just reading the tea leaves there. Based on that verbiage from MJ Morris, kind of taking us behind the scenes a little bit, I think NC State is pretty motivated to get McCall signed, or obviously somebody else. But clearly they've circled McCall, and that's the thing. This is not going to be an easy pull for UCF by any means.
No, I was going to tweet it last night, but I decided against it. But listen, he went to Coastal Carolina. He's from Indian Trail, North Carolina, which is only 2 hours from Coastal, 2 hours from NC State. So, I mean, no, it's not going to be easy at all. NC State needs a starter. UCF needs a starter. The good things going for UCF, and again, this is for all the Gus haters, it's Gus Malzahn. That has weight with college players. They know who Gus Malzahn is. Number two, I think you have more of a chance to win the Big 12 than you do the ACC next year. Because, again, you have Clemson, who's always going to be good. You have Florida State. Duke's going to go kind of take a back seat. And then you have North Carolina, because I'm sure they already got a transfer quarterback
Max
in the portal. Yep. So, I mean, I think I'm a UCF podcaster, so obviously I want Grayson McCall. And I think NC State, it would not shock me in the slightest if he chose NC State. Not in the slightest. Especially how much money NC State will offer him compared to us.
Hey, well, but if UCF doesn't get Grayson McCall, we can go after Jeff Sims if that interests you, because he just entered the portal.
No, I'm okay. I'll take Timmy McClain at that point.
You're okay?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay.
That'd be school number 4.
And when has that worked out? I mean, we're turning into JT Daniels at that point.
Anyway, continue. I just had to get that out there.
No, that totally fine. But no, I mean, it wouldn't shock me either way. But again, I think UCF has a good pitch saying we are number 6 in offense. John Rice Plumlee, who was injured, everybody was still talking about him, even when he was injured. Like, everybody knew John Rice Plumlee. You're basically the face of the team. Like, you'll get, if the NIL deals don't necessarily, it's not as much as NC State, well, guess what? You're going to get public sponsorship. You're going to get whatever the hell John Rice Plumlee got. Like, it was almost like he was sponsored by 50 companies. So I think the big push is we are number 6 in offense. You're going to be able to run the offense you want to run. You can kind of come to a situation where winning your conference is very doable in the Big 12 next year. And again, all eyes are going to be on you. Whereas in the ACC, it's kind of not up for grabs as much. You already know where the eyeballs are going to be on in the ACC. So we'll see. Do you have any final thoughts on this? Obviously, he's visiting this weekend. He had NC State visited his house this past week. He'll be visiting NC State, from what we've heard, this weekend. And he's also visiting UCF. I hope UCF is second on the list, because if he leaves UCF and then goes home and does a visit with NC State, that kind of, I don't know if UCF can get that done.
I have to think you got to blow this guy away. And I don't just mean from a presentation standpoint. I mean from a monetary standpoint.
Yeah.
Again, don't know what the whole situation is with Kingdom NIL, if they're in a good spot, a bad spot, don't really know. But I would be inclined to say that whatever that number is, as long as it's within reason, I'm sure you'll have to overpay for any of these guys. Don't get me wrong. But as long as you feel like you can pay this guy what you think is he's worth and you have enough to continue to, I mean, if this is, let me just put it this way. If you spent most of your budget on Grayson McCall and then your transfer class suffered elsewhere, are you still doing it?
Like where we don't get good linebackers?
I'm just putting the hypotheticals out there because I think Grayson McCall is a fantastic quarterback, and you know, this isn't like just for those who haven't watched him, like the levels here from him and John Rice Plumlee at this point, like from when they were both into the portal, like they're not even like in the same tier we're talking here. They're really not. I think that's fair. That's no shade to John Rice, but that's just a fact.
There's very few UCF fans who would disagree with that, but
I don't think many should disagree with me. And again, not shade at all. Just not trying to tear down somebody to prop someone up, but that's the truth with Grayson McCall. So like, I mean, again, I'm not the one signing the checks or anything, clearly. I don't want that job, please.
Well, I'll add on to your question because I want to know what your answer would be. Would you rather sign Grayson McCall and then maybe get average linebackers and or offensive linemen? Or would you rather get some really good linebackers, really good offensive linemen, but have Timmy McClain as your QB1?
I haven't seen a quarterback at this point in the portal because I think like because if you go to the On3 rankings that we have up on the site, Grayson McCall is currently the 14th ranked quarterback in the draft class. Or the transfer portal class. Jeez. He's 14. After him, I don't see an absolute. I mean, Shuck was down there. Don't get me wrong. Blake Shapen's down there. You had mentioned him. Taylon Green, Boise State. We saw him. I just don't see the substantial upgrades to what you already have in Timmy McClain down there. Like none of those guys are coming in my opinion, and you're going to be like, all right, you're the starting quarterback. Like day one.
Yeah, it's just him.
It's just I mean, I think Grayson's like realistically the guy that you're going to do that, and everybody else that's above Grayson in these rankings, whether it's a Will Rogers or the Van Dykes of the world, DJ Uiagalelei, Chandler Rogers, and so forth. Those guys are going to be too expensive.
Yeah,
I would have to think, and there's going to be too much competition, quite frankly, for UCF to get involved. So, I would do it. I would try to blow this guy away and get him in the building. Go down swinging.
Yeah, do whatever you can. And I think UCF is very well aware that, I mean, I'm curious to see how much money got funneled into Kingdom NIL last night. That's all I want to say. I am very intrigued to see how much money, after that report came out, if it blew the Terry Mahajer tweet out of the water, because I think a lot of fans, for the first time, Knight Nation really, is, like I said earlier, kind of putting their arms around a quarterback and agreeing on something of who should be starting, who should be playing, who they want. It's Grayson McCall. So we'll see. By next week, I'm sure we will find out whether he's going to be a Knight or if he's going to the Wolfpack or whatever they call it in NC State. But who knows? I'm pumped. I will be very disappointed if we don't get him. That's probably every UCF fan at this point. All right, let's quickly talk about the bowl game. That was supposed to be our entire episode this week, so we'll keep it brief. The ACC is a crap show, if we're being honest. Did you see the report that they picked? Did you see the Notre Dame report where they these bowl games didn't know that Notre Dame was on the list for like an option that they could have. So the ACC, this report might be wrong. This might just be fake. They put pieces of paper in a hat of the bowl games, and they picked which one Notre Dame would go to.
Well, that came from The Athletic, so if I'm going to assume that is a very valid report.
What a crap show! Crap show!
Whose fault was this, Sean? Whose fault was this whole ripple effect?
I mean, the College Football Playoff Committee.
I'm not going to get into it here. I know you don't want to hear my spiel.
We're already 30 minutes in.
I'm not going to give you a spiel. I'm just going to say the system sucks. It sucked for UCF. It sucked, and listen, it sucks for everybody. This isn't just exclusive to FSU. It sucked for every other undefeated champion in a conference that has gotten screwed because of a crappy system that everybody's known was a crappy system. Bottom line. Anyway, that whole decision, though, sent a ripple effect in the ACC because everybody that was in their expected bowls got absolutely everybody kept getting pushed back and pushed back. And we all thought we were playing Duke. And I'm like, cool. Like, my wife's a Duke fan. We're going to have a house divided. And I was like, hey, we can go to the game together, Gasparilla Bowl. That lasted about an hour. And now we're playing Georgia Tech. And on the start, I mean, they're both winnable games. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to sit here I'm so scared of Georgia Tech. Respect for what they've done this year, getting to bowl eligibility. No doubt about that. That's a big accomplishment for that program, given where they were. Yeah. They gave Georgia a fight in the last game of the season. Respect to that. They beat North Carolina. They beat Miami. So they have some good wins there in the ACC this year. Not going to be easy. Duke, because of their quarterback situation, without having Riley Leonard, I mean, I was there for that Florida State Duke game. I was live for that one, and I saw Duke without Riley Leonard when he got taken out. Oh, and then you saw them down the stretch without him. I mean, he was holding that team up. So
yeah,
if you were looking for, we have a great chance to win and we could do some damage, you probably wanted to play Duke, especially with Mike Elko no longer there. Transition, they didn't have a head coach filled yet. So Duke was probably a better opponent for that. But if you're looking for more of a better game, I think Georgia Tech's going to give you that in this one.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, when I saw Duke, I said, easy bowl win. That's great. Like, no Mike Elko, no Riley Leonard. I mean, great. We can just have a good drinking bonanza in Tampa. But no, Georgia Tech is a tough team. Brent Key is their head coach. He was at UCF for, 10 years. He's really turned the program around in 1 year just to become bowl eligible. And I'm sure they're pumped. I'm sure Georgia Tech fans are pumped because they haven't been to a bowl game in a while. So we'll get more in depth. I will say Georgia Tech's running game scares the hell out of me, which I think is a reasonable thing to be nervous about.
I guess. I think the UCF defense has come around. Now, who's going to be playing? It depends who's going to be playing in these games, which we have to mention, too. I mean, our own guys hitting the portal. I mean, Corey Thornton hit the portal, which I know you haven't been the biggest fan of Corey Thornton, rather, but you have to give that guy. You have to give that guy credit, though. He had a good season this year. In fact, I think from Pro Football Focus standpoint, he was UCF's highest rated defender.
Yeah.
So he hit the portal. Jordan McDonald hit the portal. Obviously, not enough opportunity here for him. But yeah, who knows who's going to play? Who knows who's going to play?
Well, I will say this, and again, because the Grayson McCall news, I'm sure we'll get a lot more information on transfers out before the next episode. But to your point, it does seem like we're not going to be losing a lot of our top guys. Like, it seems like if Corey Thornton is the, highest guy you're losing, there's a reason you went in the transfer portal last year and got a lot of cornerbacks.
It depends, and you'll probably see it by the end of this week. You're going to start seeing decisions made from Javon Baker. You're going to start seeing decisions made from Kobe Hudson and RJ Harvey. Yeah. Some of those big hitters that we're kind of waiting on, if they're going to enter the NFL draft. And I thought at this point you might, like a Javon Baker, I think he's basically said it without saying it that he wants to go to the NFL. But he might be waiting to see what Kingdom can do for him. I mean, that's part of this too. These guys are all in
Kingdom
discussions.
saying, "We'll pay Kobe. You can because I'm sure at this point Javon Baker's a little too expensive. I'm sure they're like, we'll pay Kobe, we'll pay RJ. You can go to the NFL, because Javon really doesn't have many options. Like, it's not like he can go transfer somewhere. It's basically you come back for another year or you go to the NFL. So it's like he's kind of stronghold a little bit. Like, he can't. It's not like he'd be like, I want this amount of money.
And I wonder if he wants to play in the bowl game.
I think he will.
One last showcase before, and then he decides to make that decision to go to the draft. I mean,
Gus said that all the NFL guys they're having conversations with them, and the staff is giving them the best information that they can possible to make a good decision. If I was RJ, I would stay an extra year. If I was Kobe, I definitely would stay an extra year. If I was Javon, I would leave. I want Javon Baker back, but it's
I shouldn't say that. If any of these guys go to the NFL, I mean, I'm not going to blame you whatsoever. This is just selfishly speaking.
No, this is definitely selfish. The RJ thing, we've discussed it for a while. I said I think RJ would benefit from another year being RB1 and leading the Big 12. I think he would take over the Big 12 next year.
Could be.
Kobe, he's been the second best receiver on UCF. So what could he be? He did, but that's what I'm saying. He was 5th in receiving yards in the Big 12. What could he do being wide receiver 1? I think if Grayson McCall's your quarterback, what could you do with Grayson McCall?
Yeah, and everyone's going to get elevated. Townsend will get elevated. Baker's going to, the other Baker, Gerard Baker's going to get elevated. I mean, it's not like it's going to be Barrett next year or anything like that.
No, you got weapon-wise, UCF is fine. We're not nervous about the weapons. But that's what I'm saying. If you're Javon Baker, you've led UCF the last 2 years in receiving. You were second in the Big 12 by 3 yards to lead receiving yards in the Big 12. What do you need another? Like, that's why it would not shock me in the slightest. I'm just assuming Javon's gone. Like, he's put good stuff on film. What is an extra year going to do? Like, so I agree. I think he's going to play in the bowl game, which Gus said, from his knowledge, no top players really sitting out for the bowl game. So that's a positive. But, yeah, we'll see. I mean, next week we'll be doing a more in-depth breakdown of all the transfers out. Talk about, if we get any transfers in, what that can mean for UCF. Talk a little bit more about the bowl game. Because next week it'll be this is 6, 12, 13, 4. Okay, so we'd be about a week out from Duke. So I think more likely than not, we'll kind of break down more of the transfer portal guys next week. But I don't expect many more guys, to be completely honest. There will be a couple more, but not any that you'll be, completely shocked by, which I think is a testament to the staff to keep some top guys here, because a lot of these guys could have easily transferred out and went to another school. So we'll see. But Nick, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, like I kind of said already, let's hold on here for this weekend and see what UCF can cook up, if you will, with Grayson McCall. And if it's not Grayson, I have no idea who it's going to be at that point.
Timmy, I guess.
Zero. It might be the Timon and Dylan. I don't know. But eventually we'll get to this bowl game. Seems like there's so many things ahead of it that are just taking precedence right now. Again, it's crazy, but let's just the month of December is the craziest time in college football. It really is. So let's all hold on.
Yep. News every day. Stuff happening every day. Hold on, and December 22nd will be here before you know it. Guys, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. We'll have an announcement in the next couple days. Nick doesn't even know this. We're finally getting these hats done. These hats are going to be able to be bought and purchased. I'm getting them made in the next couple days. So, again, hopefully for Christmas they will be arriving if we can get this up and running. If not, you can have it during the month of January or whatever at some point. But we'll be getting these out and being able to sell very, very soon in the next week or so. So be on the lookout for that. Follow us on all of our socials. Follow Nick, follow me. We'll be posting any updates and obviously keeping you informed about transfer portal stuff and bowl game, whatever happens in this crazy, crazy month of December. All right, everybody, this has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you next week.